Hi, everybody. Welcome to the CURCA Conference Grant Workshop. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are really happy that we have some participants here. We're going to be talking a little bit about what are formerly known as our travel grants, conference grants today. If you are presenting at a virtual conference between now and September 15th and anytime in the spring, you are eligible for a conference grant to cover registration costs. So we'll be talking a little bit about that process today. Just to introduce ourselves though, my name is Mandy Lucido. I'm the graduate assistant here with CURCA.
And I'm Allison Gradell. I'm the administrative assistant at CURCA.
And we'll be walking you through this whole process today. So with our next slide, we're gonna go ahead and start about kind of finding some more information about our conference grants. I like to search just on Google. I do UNG CURCA and it comes right up. Or when you're in the UNG website, you can do it on the search bar as well. And CURCA stands for Center for Undergraduate Research and Creative Activities. And then under student opportunities, you'll find the conference travel grants tab, which has more information. And then on that screen, you'll see, once again, we are only covering conferences and only the virtual conferences, their registration fees at this time because of travel restrictions with COVID. And the deadline for this conference grants will be January 29th. So we are coming up on the deadline. And then at the bottom there, you can see the apply for conference and travel grant button. That will redirect you to the InfoReady website for the application itself. So now we just wanted to go ahead and kind of talk about some of these frequently asked questions that we do have come up, whether it's been in travel grants in the past or with these conference grants. So to begin with, can I apply for a conference and travel grant if I've already graduated? Unfortunately, your research has to be in the undergraduate level. So if you're a graduate student, there are grants out there for covering some of these kind of fees in conference registration, stuff like that. So if you are a graduate student interested in something like that, go ahead and email curca@ung.edu and we can redirect you to the person that's in charge of that. The next question that we have here, do I receive $500 if I win? So with our conference grants, this is up to $500. It's not a guaranteed $500. So that's something to keep in mind. Two, since we're only going to be covering registration costs, it's not likely that it's going to be up to $500, but when you, as we're going through the application, we'll talk about where you kind of allot and estimate for some of those registration costs. And these funds are typically reimbursed, and we'll talk a little bit more about that process in a little bit. Okay, next here, so we have, should I estimate on the lower end for my cost? So we actually recommend that you try to estimate as much as you can, as accurately as you can. And some kind of key tips with this, since we're only talking about registration costs for this semester, this cycle of our conference grants. If you don't have the information for the registration, go ahead and check out last year's registration costs, and that should give you a good idea of what to allot for this year. You're also welcome to get in touch with the conference themselves and see if they have any other insight on that. The next question we have here is, will requesting above $500 disqualify me or hurt my chances? So specifically, there is a budget overview to submit. And again, this might not be the case in this cycle, but in the past, including some of the travel costs, it could go over that 500. You can still allot for all that information, but our grants only cover up to 500. And for the last few questions here, I have, how do I know if my conference is a local, state, or regional, or national conference? So this is part of our ranking system when it comes to the rubric, and this is a common question. Sometimes it's a given, like a lot of our students do apply for NCUR, which is the National Conference for Undergraduate Research. So that is a national conference. So sometimes it's in the name and on the website information, or if you're still kind of unsure and having a difficult time really figuring out what kind of conference it is, we recommend that you talk with your faculty advisor or get in touch with the conference organization. but that does typically, that is typically on the website. Next we have, what if I haven't been accepted yet to my conference? So you can submit a statement with the anticipation acceptance date. If this isn't available on the conference organization's website, that's another question to email them about. Kind of check in to see when they have an idea about acceptance letters going out. And then the last question that we have listed here is, can I submit more than one application for conference or travel grants? Yes, we are very supportive of any student that is applying for multiple conferences. And so, yeah, we definitely encourage that. One question that we have had come up, especially in the last year during COVID, has been around if a conference cancels, what happens at that point. So the conference grant does only cover things in that cycle. So unfortunately, it's not like something that could roll over into the next semester. You would have to reapply again if you are, if your conference cancels again, because this is only going to be virtual conferences. This shouldn't be an issue this cycle, but just wanted to make sure that people were aware that any funds are only for this cycle, and it's not necessarily something you can transfer over to a later future conference.
Okay. Let's see here. There we go. Okay. Can you guys hear me? Yep. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So now I'm going to go over the items required for submission. So there's 3 pieces that are required for submission, and this is the first one, is the cover letter. The cover letter is 2 pages max, and we want you to use standard font size, standard margins. And when you're writing this, try to include as much information and detail as possible while staying within the limit. And also keep in mind the audience that you're writing this for. The reviewers will be reviewing your application and reviewing the cover letter. It comes from a variety of backgrounds. So really try to write this for a general audience and everything. And then the information you need in the cover letter, you want to mention the conference details. So where is the conference, when, like Mandy said, the impact or the type of conference. So is it a local conference? Is it regional or national? You want to mention that there. You also want to mention if this is a conference just for undergraduates, like NCUR, or is this have a mix of undergraduates and graduates and professionals? So you want to put all those different details in that section. And then the next one is project collaborators and student mentor. So anyone who has worked alongside you on the project, you want to make sure you list their role, and or if there's other faculty members that worked alongside you with that, mention that here, and also identify your student mentor or your advisor. And the next one, you want to mention your own specific role, your own individual role in this research, how you played a part, what you contributed. That kind of section is specifically for you. The next one is budget overview. And, as Mandy said, we are only refunding registration costs. So this is going to be a lot pared down to what it used to be in previous years when we used to physically travel before COVID. So you can get an estimate, either online at the organization's website. And like Mandy mentioned, if it's not on there, you can look at past years or even contact your mentor and see if they have any insight for you or the organization themselves. But also I want to mention here, and I'll mention it later too for the budget, we are refunding registration costs, but not personal memberships, because we've had a few instances in the past where people have gotten a personal membership along with the registration, but we can only refund the registration, no personal memberships with that conference. And then lastly, explain how the conference connects to your professional and career goals. And this is where you want to spend at least a paragraph really writing how presenting at this conference and presenting at this research, presenting your research, how that will help you grow, how that will especially directly affect you professionally and in your career. And you really want to spend a good bit of time working on that and kind of going through the thoughts in your process and everything, because that's also weighted the most heavy on the rubric. And we'll talk about a bit more on the next slide. So again, those are the information, and always refer to the rubric. The page that Mandy showed in the second slide on the CURCA website, you can actually download the PDF so you can see this whole description of what we're looking for and the rubric as well, in case you want to reference that in the future. So the next thing I want to mention is if you're working or performing with a group. This happens quite often. And we also get the question a lot is if you're working in a group, if every student needs to apply individually, and the answer is yes. Each student must apply individually. So students from a research group may include the same abstract or your proof of abstract to what you submitted to the conference, but your cover letter needs to be your own individual work because it's everyone's individual experience. Sometimes whether you're equal or you have a primary author and someone just helped a little bit, you had your own individual experience and what you're going to be getting out of the conference and getting out of this presentation will be individual. So it can't be a carbon copy. It has to be applied individually, and you have to have your own distinct cover letter. Another thing is if you do have an equally collaborating group, so both members collaborate equally, we really want to have you make a strong case, both of you, of why each separate team member should be funded together. So just keep that in mind if you're working in a group and if you're sharing everything equally, there's no primary author, keep that in mind. And then lastly, please note that we cannot promise teams will be funded together. This really has a lot to do more so with how much funds we have allotted for this, and also, how strong of a case is made for the whole group to be funded. So please keep that in mind. Okay, and here's the rubric. So this is what the reviewers will use. And again, like I mentioned, the PDF of this that includes the request for proposals and the rubric is on our CURCA website. But I just want you to look at the 4 topics that they'll be judging on the cover letter. And then as you can see on the top, there is a sliding scale. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of points. So the first topic is impact of presentation. And this has to do with whether your conference is a local conference, or regional, state, or national. As you guys can see all the way on the left, the most points will be awarded to whether if it's a national or international conference due to the scope and the audience that you can reach on behalf of UNG. The second is student participation. So, what if you were in a group or if you're an individual, how much effort and time and what was your process and with the research and everything working alongside your mentor, that's the next one. The third one is the type of conference. And this has to, again, to do with whether this conference is just for undergraduates, is it for graduates and professionals, or a mix of all 3? That's weighted as well. And then the last one is the academic and professional development. And that's the most important because out of all of this, it's weighted the heaviest and everything. As you can see on the bottom right, this is multiplied by 2. And that goes back to the last paragraph in the cover letter explaining how, what you would get out of your own professional development by going through this conference, by learning and, mingling with your peers and everything. So that's the rubric. And then lastly, other required items other than the cover letter. So other than the cover letter, which we went over, you also need to submit your original abstract. If you have a creative work that you submitted to your conference, so not abstract, so like a piece of art or an edition tape or a piece of music that you obviously cannot upload into InfoReady, then just submit a letter explaining what the submission was and then what the review process was in lieu of abstract. And where applicable, if you could provide us with what the committee requested, so whether, again, if it's an audition tape, a physical, artwork, what have you, just include that in the letter. And then lastly, the proof of acceptance, so your letter from the conference accepting you into the conference. And a lot of the times, especially since we're starting this so early, you might not have your acceptance letter yet. And as Mandy said, that's perfectly okay. Just give an estimated date of when you expect to hear back. And if you ever have any questions after this, you can always email curca@ung.edu. We'd be more than happy to talk about any aspect of the cover letter or anything else of the application process. So in review, the deadline to apply is January 29th at 11:59 p.m. Please use the InfoReady site on the CURCA webpage and have ready to upload your cover letter, your submitted abstract or a letter describing it, and your proof of acceptance. And again, any issues, feel free to email us. One special thing I wanted to mention to NCUR applicants. We sent an email out about a week ago or so, but we just wanted to go over this briefly again. if you wanted to apply, if you wanted to get funding for NCUR, what we would like you to do is to apply for CURCA Spring Conference grants before January 29th, which is the deadline. And then also register on the NCUR conference site by January 29th as well. You know, and when you register on the NCUR site, please choose invoice the institution to have the bill sent to CURCA. Now, just wanted to put this kind of note and everything out there is that, you know, CURCA's funding is available. We don't expect a whole lot of applicants this cycle, but we're a little bit unsure. You know, we'll try to fund as many people as we can within our budget. And so we have a few more regulations right there. And again, we can't fund personal memberships. So lastly, I wanted to go over, you've applied, what's next? So you've applied before the deadline for the conference grants. We're hoping to have the status of everyone's grant with you around mid-February. For people who are awarded, we'll email you and we'll send you more details about the reimbursement process. And I just wanted to briefly touch on that to kind of give you an overview about what the reimbursement process is if you're awarded. So if you have been awarded by CURCA, within a week of presenting at your virtual conference, and it can be 2 weeks, it doesn't necessarily have to be a week, but within a week or two, send us an email and attach your receipt for the conference registration cost. Again, no personal memberships, but the receipt for that, and then a screenshot of the conference program that lists your name, the title of your presentation, and the time of your presentation. I know you're not going to have a physical copy, so just a screenshot of that would be proof enough. And then what we will do is once we receive that email, we will respond back and attach a form for you to fill out, and you can choose to either be reimbursed by check or electronic deposit, and then you just fill it out, sign, and return to us, and we'll process that for you. So yeah, does anyone have any questions?
I do. I have a few.
Okay.
So Hema, she's my partner. We all got accepted to the NCURC.
Congratulations.
So this is my first time doing this, so I'm still new. And I don't know, like I have a lot of questions. So my first question is like, I see that the early registration is January 29 for NCURC as well.
Yes.
So if we're not, you know, you're not gonna let us know until mid-February, right?
That's correct.
So that means if we don't get accepted, we're gonna have to pay more money. Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't get accepted into NCUR.
No, if you don't get accepted to the funding for the funding.
Yeah, so if you don't get accepted into the conference grant, if you don't get awarded and everything, you would be in charge of the registration cost for NCUR. That's correct.
Okay. And also for the to register to send the invoice to CURCA, what email address do we put, or like address the UNG?
Yeah, you can do curca@ung.edu.
Okay, because I think it asks for the address too.
Okay.
And then like the supervisor, is that Dr. Lynn?
That would be Dr. Lynn. So if you can put 2 email addresses, you can do that both. So that way she can keep an eye on it, and so can I.
Okay, perfect. What else? I think that's it.
Okay. Any questions about the cover letter or the rubric or anything?
I don't think so. Hey, Ma, do you have a question?
Okay. Does anyone else? Do you have anything in the chat, Mandy?
No, we're all good in the chat. I'm assuming she's good too.
Okay. Well, thank you guys.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for everybody for coming. And we will be uploading this as well on YouTube for anyone that needs it after the fact.
And if you have any questions, you know, that you forgot to ask or wanted to double check on, you know, you can always email us curca@ung.edu and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. So yeah.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.